The way that we can answer questions about the process is by using filters. And in this case, this is a performance filter. So what we see here is the overall duration histogram for those process durations. And we see that there are those really long running ones here on the right side, and we want to focus on those. But let's just take the 21-day limit that we have as a target value for our process, and we use that as the border. So only the blue cases, the ones that are taking longer than 21 days, these are the problematic ones. So we are going to focus on them in the subsequent analysis. In the preview, we can already see that roughly 15% of all the cases fall into that category. Now, once we apply the filter, we will see a little reminder here in the lower left corner that we are not looking at the full data set at the moment, but just the 15%, just the 92 out of the 608 cases. First of all, we can see that this rework loop is even more dominant than before. We are now going through this loop almost 3 times per case. That certainly has something to do with those long case durations. Now, to compare these long-running cases, we can do a variance analysis and compare them to the short-running cases. So here we're looking at the cases that are taking longer than 21 days, and we have applied the performance filter. But we also have filtered the same data set in the opposite way so that we can look at the cases that are shorter than 21 days. If we look at the filter, then we have just focused in on that area to the left here. Now, if we compare those two process models, then we can see some differences. For example, we can see that for those short-running cases that take up to 21 days in total, we will still see this loop around this amend request for quotation activity. But it's less frequent. We go through this loop 245 times for 516 cases. And if we look at the total frequency on a case level, not counting repetitions, we can go to the case frequency. So then we see how many cases out of those 516 cases go through a particular activity or go through a certain path. And then we can see that 145 cases out of the 516 cases go through this extra loop. Now, if we go back to the long-running cases, we see the total amount of repetition here is enormous. But also if we look at the case frequency, then we can see that 86 out of those 92 cases are going through this extra loop. So this has something to do with those delays, but just the frequency of those delays does not fully explain it, because we sometimes still have those repetitions here in those slow-running cases, and we still make it within the 21 days. So if we look at the performance view rather than the frequency view, we can go here, and then we look at the mean duration. And the mean duration shows us the average time between the different steps in the process and how long the step itself is taking. Now, what we see here, for example, there are some areas where it takes longer, but for example, this loopback from this particular activity, even if it does occur, just takes on average 38 hours for the fast-running cases. If we go back to the long-running cases and we go to the performance view, then we will see that this is taking really much longer, so 14 days on average. And we also see those delays emerging from other parts in the process, all pointing to this particular activity, analyze requests for quotation, which really seems to be our bottleneck here in this particular process.